This is the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast with your host, Greg Jameson. Influencer marketing is the process of identifying, researching, engaging, and supporting the people who create high-impact conversations with your customers. On each episode, I talk with industry leaders, business rock stars, and internet celebrities who contribute their knowledge about influencing others and growing your influence. Welcome to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. I'm your host, Greg Jameson. If you happen to be watching today's episode instead of just listening to it, you'll notice that I've got a special guest, and I'm really excited that Kim Garst is joining us here today. Probably everyone listening to the podcast already knows at least who Kim is, but for those that don't, Kim is an icon in the world of social media, and that's why I'm really excited that she has agreed to be on the show today. Kim and I met a couple years ago, I guess, at an event called Social Media Day Denver. We got reconnected at this year's Social Media Day Denver, and like I said, I'm super excited that Kim is here. So welcome, Kim. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience anything you want to about who you are.
Awesome. Thank you first for inviting me. I love sharing knowledge, so thank you so much for having me on your podcast. My name is Kim Garst, and I love that you gave me such a lovely introduction, but really what I love to share with people is that my passion is all around shortening the learning curve for other entrepreneurs when it comes to leveraging the power of social and digital media to grow their businesses. So my focus primarily is with small businesses or service-based entrepreneurs who want to up-level leveraging social media or digital marketing processes. So that's my jam. That's what I love to do, and being able to share knowledge is definitely something that I'm passionate about.
Well, like I said, welcome. I'm really glad that you're here. Yeah, you're talking about social media all the time, and I think that one of the big disconnects is that people sit here and they get involved in social media and they post their stuff, but at some point we have to go from just sharing information to actually putting food on the table, and that's kind of a big problem, I think, with social media, is that social media is not designed for sales. But one of the things that you were talking about at Social Media Day was using Facebook groups. And maybe that is one of the ways that you kind of bridge that gap from just being out there being social all the time to actually saying, hey, I've got something here and I want you to spend some money with me in order to continue our relationship.
Right. Well, honestly, it doesn't, even Facebook groups is not the magic bullet. So often I think business owners think that social media is just that. And the problem, in my opinion, I see a lot of people doing it. I did it, so I totally understand. When I started with social media, oh goodness, 10 years or so ago, it was just getting started, like, right? And you just threw a bunch of stuff at the wall and you tried to figure it out as you went. And I think, unfortunately, that's still the case. So many business owners, just get started with it and they don't really have a plan. It'd be like getting in your car and just saying you're going south instead of, getting in your car and saying, I'm going to go to Pensacola. Like, it's just a total different thing. I mean, getting your car and going south could take you anywhere, right? And so I think that's kind of what happens lots of times with social media, is they don't approach the whole space with a what I would call a business-driven goal set. Like, what's that piece of content that you're sharing on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? What result do you want from it? And so I think when we are sharing content in the social space, we need to be intentional with it and understand that much of social is just that. It's social. You have to share content that is meaningful and matters to other people. And the reality is, and one of the reasons it's a struggle for us to create sales is, just popping on social and saying, I got something for sale, it doesn't work. You have to do the work. You have to build relationships on social media. You have to share content that is more relatable to those that you're trying to attract versus holding up a for sale sign first. But what I'm super excited about is the ability to leverage the power of Facebook groups. When you're sharing and you're trying to be all places and creating content in all of the social networks today, it can be overwhelming. And again, you're creating content for different social platforms, different communities, even perhaps, because the people on Twitter are probably very different than the people you have on Facebook. So the beautiful part about Facebook groups is that it's a confined space, if you will, where you can really focus on the content, the relationships, attracting the right people to you, whether it's based around your expertise or not, or some common theme. And the premise behind it is that you are attracting your ideal client, your ideal customer into a Facebook group where you can really serve them. Versus hoping that they run into your content on social somewhere, right? And then it just broadens the workload, I think. So Facebook groups are such an amazing way to attract the right people, get them into a Facebook group around a common interest or a common expertise that you have, and then love them up. And then ultimately, when you have something for sale, a percentage of them will buy because they have been nurtured in an environment where they feel safe and are consistently being able to see the content that you share.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of us hear all the time is that what we want to do with social media is actually get them off of social media and get them onto our email list. In some ways, what we're talking about here today is to, rather than getting them off of social media and onto our email list, is get them out of their news feed and get them into our group.
And by virtue of doing that, there's a beautiful feature inside of Facebook groups. It's called questions. There's 3 questions that you can set up inside of Facebook groups. And one of those questions should absolutely be, what is your email address? And then you have a valid email address. And what I have found is that so many people will actually give you a real email address there, not just their throwaway email. They'll actually provide a real email address, probably their primary email address, and then you can add that to your CRM or your email service provider. Now you have them on your list. It's probably the easiest way that I have found to actually get people from social to my list, outside of just giving them something for free. That obviously works as well, but those 3 questions are such a golden opportunity to not only through the process of attracting the right people to your group, but to again get that email address and have a more active touch point with your ideal client or your ideal customer.
Okay, so that's one question. What would you say the other 2 questions ought to be?
Well, it just depends, honestly, on your, what your end goal is. Like, it could be like, if I'll just use a couple of examples. If you're a business coach and you're trying to get a feel for, where their business is your business, less than 10,000? Is your business over, 50,000, or, whatever it is? Those are income qualification questions, right? So you can leverage that information however you choose. Maybe it's knowledge. What do you want to know? What's your biggest struggle? What's your what do you feel like you've really done well? Or it just would depend on, honestly, what your group is all about, and more importantly, what do you want to know from them? When you ask questions and get knowledge from your ideal customers or your ideal prospects, you need to approach it from, what am I going to do with that information? Is that information going to be value based to me in some way? And when I say value based in some way, how it should be value based in a way that you can structure additional content for them. Or like, say for example, somebody that has a business that's less than 10,000 or have made no money, you need to serve them up content that is, at a baseline level, right? Versus somebody who's at over 100,000, in their revenue journey, then that is going to be a whole different approach to how you serve that person. So again, your question should be, in my opinion, should be positioned in such a way that you can use that information in a constructive way to give more value back to the community that you're there trying to build.
Okay. Now, some Facebook groups are free and anybody can join them. Other ones, they're free, but not anybody can join them. And other ones are paid. It's like, you have to pay me some money to get into this group.
Yeah. Well, actually, Facebook, well, there is paid groups these days where there is you can use the opportunity to that Facebook gives you. They actually have a method for you to charge for your groups right now as well. So, if you wanted to have a paid group, like most of my groups right now have a paid element to it, but I'm not leveraging Facebook's paid mechanism, because the reason I don't do that is because the fees associated with it are pretty steep. And I think there's so many other ways that you can generate a paid group and keep a good, more percentage of that revenue than using Facebook's paid mechanism, essentially. So my groups, as I was mentioning earlier, are all support groups in conjunction with things that I've charged for. Maybe it's a course or a training, a continuity program. I have an inner circle, which is a monthly membership fee, but the community is inside of inside of a Facebook group. So the support element, is a piece of it, but the Q&As or, just, connection and all of that, the actual, I would say the gold is in that Facebook group. It's where I move people forward. I support them. I answer questions, things of that nature. And so that's a paid element. And to your point, there's a lot of free groups out there that are, from a standpoint of, hey, which one do I do? So let's just dissect that real quick. A free group is a great way to amass a community of people that are interested in a common thing, whether it's an area of expertise, whether it's a common theme of some sort, whether it's, dads with daughters or, parents or kids with parents who have Alzheimer's or, whatever it is. And the beautiful part about starting with a free group is that you can navigate to a paid element at some future point. In other words, you can use that group to harvest. That sounds terrible. It's like body parts, but but to attract people to your paid things. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. But I think that's such a great way to build a community, love them up, support them, give great value to those people. And then when you do hold up a for sale sign, they're way more likely to, spend money with you at that point in time.
Okay, so we need to take a quick break here, but on the other side of the break, I actually want to talk a little bit more about that thing about holding up a for sale sign, and if the members of the group can do that also, or if only you as the group moderator can do it. And then maybe we'll dig in a little bit more in terms of the participants in the group as well. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back after this. Hi, I'm Greg Jameson, the host of the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. Every week, I not only have the opportunity, but the real privilege of interviewing experts in their field, true thought leaders, and I get to share this information with you. The purpose of this is really to help you sell more of your products and services online, which is the core premise of my primary business, Web Stores Limited. At Web Stores, we go out and we create e-commerce websites for small businesses. Plus, we do internet marketing and digital advertising for those businesses to really help them sell more online. We have a whole number of resources and tools designed to help make this process easier for businesses, probably much like yours. I've been the author of several #1 best-selling books, including Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets and The Influencer Effect, plus a whole series of online courses if you want to learn how to do this stuff yourself. The best way to remain in contact with me, besides subscribing to this podcast, of course, is to simply go to gregjameson.com/free gift, where I have a special offer for you simply because you are a valued listener to this podcast. Thanks again, and now let's get back to today's episode. Welcome back to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. I'm Greg Jameson, and with me today is Kim Garst. And right before the break, Kim and I were talking, we've been talking a lot about Facebook groups, and we were talking in specific about the ability to maybe hold up a for sale sign at some point in your group. And the question that I had about that is that as the group moderator, you can certainly do that. You've been providing this content, you've been interacting with the people in the group, and now you say, oh, by the way, I've got this thing that's really going to help with whatever it is that we've been discussing here in the group. Can people that are participants in the group do the same thing? And I guess one, do you allow it? And two, why or why not?
Okay, so the question, as I understand it, is should other people be able to sell to your group members?
Right. If they're a member of the group.
Okay, so my short answer to that would be no, absolutely not, unless you have created some sort of a joint venture or affiliate relationship with someone that has something that's amazing, that gives value to your community, but that you're generating and that you don't have. Like, for example, it would be ridiculous for me to say, hey, Susie, I see you've got a Facebook groups that grow your business course, and I've got a Facebook groups that grow your business course. So you can sell your course in my group, and I'll sell my course in my group, right? So the point of that is it's the same. So why would I, give somebody else the opportunity to sell something that I have already? I have that solution myself. But if you have a relationship or somebody inside of the group that has something that would be perfect for your community, but you don't have it and you have no plans of developing it, then it would make sense to partner up with them on some collaborative venture, just making sure that you benefit from that financially more than likely. You could do it out of the goodness of your heart, but I would recommend, coming up with some revenue share of some sort, because you worked hard to build that community. Even though you don't own those people, you've nurtured them, you've built the relationship, and just giving away your influence to people that are inside of your group for free would, in my opinion, not be a super smart move.
Okay, so if someone is participating in a discussion and they are trying to answer somebody's question, and they say, hey, such and such a product will actually fix your problem for you, would you just remove that post then, or how would you handle it?
And this is one of those things, it's a little bit of a dicey situation, right? Because, if there is a discussion and somebody has a different point of view, or, they're, and I've seen a lot of people who will work groups too. So let me talk about that just real quick. If somebody has a product or service and that they know somebody else has a community that needs what they're offering, a lot of people will teach them to go into other people's groups and leverage those communities to try to attract people to them and their stuff. Okay, so that is just what people have been taught, and you will run into that. And I'm not saying that that's not a smart strategy, but I think you should do so with integrity. I think you should reach out to the admin before you try to promote your stuff inside of somebody else's community. You know, if you have something that's free, for example, and you see a common thing inside of someone else's community, I would ask before I would pitch my stuff. But that's just my 2 cents. But going back to your core question, which is, do you allow that? Facebook has a set of rules that you can create. And what's really nifty about that is if you make the decision that somebody has shared something that you would prefer they not share, you can delete it and you can let them know that they violated, you can choose one of your rules. For me, for example, one of my rules is no spam. So if I feel like that somebody is in my group and they are spamming my group members to benefit themselves, then I will delete that post, and then I will actually, Facebook lets them know when I delete it, I choose what rule they violated, and Facebook lets them know that they violated this rule. So I don't have to do a personal outreach. It doesn't feel, slimy. It doesn't feel confrontational. It's just a process of what Facebook gives to us from a resource and tool standpoint. And it also helps us to moderate the group and do so in a way that, makes sense. Like one of my rules is, no spam allowed, blah, blah, blah. And I elaborate on it a little bit. Also, I'll share 3 strikes and you're out. Like if you continually do this and you've been warned, by Facebook, then, you'll be removed from the community.
Yeah. One of the things that seems like it's really great about groups is the ability for all these people to be interacting with each other without you or me as moderators to be in there kind of overseeing everything. I mean, you probably want to oversee everything to some extent, but the fact that Susie is talking to Bob about some issue that's related to your group is a really powerful component of having a group.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I love Facebook groups is because community is such a misunderstood, in my opinion, term. In my opinion, community isn't a one-way conversation. It's a lot of times the term community in the social space is leveraged from the standpoint of, hey, you're building this community. Okay, I've got 400,000 fans on my Facebook page. Does that mean that that's a community? No, not really, because the concept of community is not just me talking to other people or them to having one-on-one conversations with me. It's about people having conversations with one another around that commonality, right? So I personally think that Facebook groups are such a great way to build out what I would call true community, because you do have that aspect of, it's not just you sharing great content, it's them engaging or asking questions and lifting each other up and answer. Maybe they ask a question and before you get a chance to answer it, 5 to 10 other people jump in and provide an answer. There's nothing for you left to add, right? And that's totally fine. That's a great part of that community aspect. So lots of times, to your point, especially as the group evolves, you will have that community atmosphere where you don't necessarily have to be the one engaging and offering up a solution to every problem or every question that comes in that's posed or posted in the group.
So how often would you say that you would recommend kind of being the instigator of questions and posts that you might do, whether it be like a Facebook Live in your group or just, hey, I'm do office hours in my Facebook group every day, every week, whatever?
Well, I do have office hours, especially in my, more trafficked groups, because I found that the questions, just got to be overwhelming if I didn't establish some boundaries. And the expectation is that, hey, I posted a question, 5 minutes ago, and I want my answer, right? So you do have to set some expectations and some boundaries around when you are available. So, I will say this though, I would recommend that you don't even start a group if you don't intend to be active in it. Now, what that activity level looks like is going to be dependent on you and your time, and ultimately even your resources. So it doesn't always have to be you. It could be somebody, you could have a moderator that helps you answer questions, or a series of moderators, honestly. It doesn't necessarily have to be you, but I do feel like if you really want to build your influence on the front side of, starting a group, you need to be active. So whether that's, going live in your Facebook group periodically, you could do once a week, for example, and that's a way for them to see you and to share content inside of your group. But I would highly recommend that you at least check in at least once a day. Now, the interesting part about that is it doesn't require a lot of time and energy. Maybe it's 15 minutes, when you first log onto Facebook, right? Where you jump in and see is there any questions, or, is there anything I should post to start generating some engagement if your group isn't super active yet. So, those are the key things that I think from an engagement and making sure that you're consistent with that each and every day. Again, there may be times when you just can't do that. So who's filling in for you on that day?
Okay, so we've talked a lot here about Facebook groups. Facebook is not the only platform out there that has groups, obviously. And I guess this is kind of a two-part question. One is, we've heard a lot that you should not basically build your house on rented land, i.e. Facebook, because the rules can change and then things disappear. So we've got that part of the question. Then the other part of the question is why a Facebook group as opposed to a LinkedIn group, or as opposed to trying to build a group on your own website or whatever it might be?
Great point. Let me address the real estate question or concern first. And I think that's why it's so important, honestly, to build an email list off of the back of social media, because the only guarantee we have around social media is that it will change. I mean, that is absolutely the case. So
We know that.
what is true today will not be true tomorrow, and I use that loosely, but the reality of it is absolutely going to change. For example, Facebook groups are not new. They have been around for a long time. What I feel is new is the opportunity that it presents now, simply because Mark Zuckerberg has really focused in on, the fact that they're going to be really building out the functionality of Facebook groups in the coming years. And so I think that is a huge hint for us to wake up and understand that this is an opportunity right now. It doesn't mean that it won't shift. It's like pages were the hot thing at one point in time. And now, we know that the algorithm has shifted, and it's harder today than ever to leverage the power of a Facebook page. So that's why it's so important to move people from social media to your list as quickly as you can. That's also one of the reasons I'm so fired up about Facebook groups, is because it's one of the easiest ways I know to do so, is leveraging the power of those questions to, capture or collect an email address from your, your people as they're coming into the group. Now, remind me again, what was the follow-on part of that? I lost my train of thought.
Why Facebook as opposed to LinkedIn or doing it on your own website?
Yes. Well, one, people are not on your website, more than likely. So in driving traffic there is going to be harder than it would be if you are generating connections. People are on Facebook, in other words, and technically they're on LinkedIn. I would say not as much on LinkedIn. The window of time that people spend on LinkedIn is probably like, if they're even active on LinkedIn, it's maybe once a day or it's a very short window of time. People are spending a lot more time on Facebook. I call it crack book because they get on Facebook and they stay longer, and they're comfortable there. It was one of the earliest social platforms. So, people are very active, I think, much more active than they are on LinkedIn. So I think the opportunity is good on Facebook, but I will say that LinkedIn groups for certain businesses make sense. If you are, a B2B business, for example, and you're trying to serve a community that's more active on LinkedIn, then they might be on Facebook. There are certain industries that probably would be the case. But for most business owners, I think the opportunity is absolutely bigger on Facebook than LinkedIn.
Okay. Awesome information here today. We're coming up against our time window here. So is there any kind of final thoughts that you want to share with people? And I guess go ahead and go right into whatever links you might want to share.
Sure. Well, you can find me on all social channels out there except for TikTok. I'm really not dancing in front of the TikTok thing yet. But you can find me pretty much anywhere under my name, Kim Garst. My website is kimgarst.com/blog. There's a lot of great free content there. I've been blogging for years. So you will probably find a lot of information that would be beneficial to your business. And I do have a gift that I would like to give to anybody who is interested in leveraging Facebook groups. This gift actually can be leveraged on all social platforms, but it's something we built specifically for Facebook groups. It's engaging content. It is designed to get people chitter-chattering inside of your group or, like I said, on social media. And you can find that at kimgarst.com/SMDD 2019. And I'm pretty sure Greg can just drop that link in for you so you don't have to remember it. But definitely go check it out. It's a 30-day content calendar that you can edit on the fly, meaning you can put your own logos on it and share it into the social space to get people chatting with you.
Awesome. Yep. We'll absolutely make sure that's part of the show notes. And I'm encouraging anybody that's listening to this or watching it to go to Kim's website and follow her. She's an amazing gal, and I really appreciate you being on here today, Kim.
Well, thank you so much again for the invite. I've loved it. Like I say, I love sharing knowledge. Feel free if you have any questions to reach out.
Okay, thanks again. Thanks for listening to today's episode of 20 Minutes of Influence. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are interested in booking myself as a speaker at one of your events or are interested in any of my coaching programs, please visit gregjameson.com.